All right, moving over to the lightweight division now. We got Balaji Oki coming in at plus 215, welcoming UFC newcomer Manuel Sousa, who comes in at minus 255. Now, Oki is coming off of a TKO loss to Mason Jones, who he nearly beat in the first round. If you guys remember that fight, Oki dropped Jones in the opening minute of that matchup, pounded on him, couldn't get him out of there. I think he dropped him again later on in that matchup, or it was the other way around. I think Jones, Jones survived that onslaught, turned the tide halfway through the round, dropped Oki himself, and then smothered him. And then in that second round, Jones ended up getting back to his grappling game and eventually found that TKO over Oki. So that snapped the momentum that Oki had coming off that win over Michael Aswell Jr. That was a fight where he started slow. Aswell's pace and output really started to cause Oki some issues, but then the power of Oki started to show off in the second and third rounds, and he was able to land much more effective damage to win that fight on the scorecards. He is a guy that has earlier in his career leaned on that power, leaned on that head hunting to try to get opponents out of there, but we're seeing as he gets into the UFC, he's going to have to figure out how to flesh out his game a little bit more. Maybe initiate the grappling when he can to try to find success there. The way that he did it against Timmy Kwamba, really mix up the game as good as he can and then try to exaggerate the power that he has to either come up with knockdowns or knockouts. And then we obviously know he has that submission loss to Chris Duncan where he got put to sleep with that guillotine. Very weird scenario that played out there. But again, 2-2 now in the UFC, still has some untapped potential considering he's 30 years old, only 4 fights into the UFC. We'll see if he can really break through in this matchup as he goes up against another striker here in Manuel Sousa, who had a spectacular comeback victory over Christian Perez on the Contender Series this past season. Now, I had known about Sousa since early 2023, where he competed for the PFL's knockoff of the Contender Series, which was the Challenger Series, and he ended up beating a tall, lanky fighter in Paulo Henrique Laia. Tough fight in terms of dealing with the guy as tall as Laie was, and he was able to land big shots, shut down the grappling, land some good ground and pound of his own, but he was able to pull out the win there. Then he got sent to Bellator, where he had a nasty knockout over Tim Wilde. He ended up coming up short against Archie Colgan in a big matchup between undefeated prospects, but luckily he got rid of the PFL chains, got on the for the LFA, and he defeated a tough grappler there in Lucas Bajos, and then he got that Contender Series opportunity where I ended up picking I picked Sousa, but I had a little bit of a shot on Perez because the odds were so wide, as I thought Perez could be a competitive striker, but Perez ended up going to his grappling bag, and it was successful for him for about 2 rounds, but you could see as that fight was going into deeper water, the efficiency of his grappling was really starting to slow down, and Sousa was trying to get back to his feet quicker. He was able to stop some of the takedowns, and then in the third round, you could see Perez huffing and puffing, and Sousa took full advantage of that, got that TKO win to secure his UFC contract, but he did not look like the big favorite that he was going into that fight. And I think that's where, a lot of people start to have questions about him. At his best, he is a nasty Muay Thai striker with big power. His grappling game is really improving, so he can keep fights in the striking realm. I think more so with the Perez fight, he wasn't really expecting that approach from Perez. I think most of the tape kind of pushed to a lot of people to think that Perez was a striker as well. So I think that may have caught Sousa off guard. Not saying grapplers still can't out-grapple him, right? But he has beaten grapplers in the past. Lucas Bajos was a grappler, and that was a fight where he was able to shut that down and implement his striking game. So he can be taking advantage in the grappling realm, but I think that learning lesson in the Christian Perez fight was an eye-opener for him. That's where we're going to see him try to be a little bit more well-rounded. Try to assume that fighters don't want to strike with you and try to get this fight to the grappling realm where he can often be the most successful fighter. He also went 26-0 as a Muay Thai fighter, so you can see why he loves that game so much. Now here against Balaji Oki, both guys, big power punchers, have the ability to, land combinations, open up big shots, and put their opponents away. But I think Oki might be looking to be a little bit more well-rounded. I think, I wouldn't be surprised if he tried to mask those big power shots with some takedown attempts, vice versa, try to really put it on Sousa that way. But I think it's just a matter of time before Sousa starts shutting down that grappling, starts getting to the striking. Both those guys end up landing big shots, but I think Sousa ends up landing the big enough shot to put Oki away here. I'm not so confident to the point that I would have played about minus 300, which you would use that earlier this week. Not confident to play him at minus 255. I think he wins, but I would rather that line closer to minus 185. So if this love on Oki continues to come in and we get a better line on Sousa earlier in fight week, or Sousa, I should say, I'm fine with that. I would be pulling the trigger at minus 185 if we can get that line. But, I think minus 255, a little bit wide. Oki can land the big shot and put Sousa away too. It's absolutely possible. I don't want to count him out. So this could be one of those spots where it's competitive and Sousa starts to take over and then gets clipped. I don't want to get caught minus 255 and that type of result end up transpiring. So I'm going to go Sousa by knockout, but be careful with that type of chalk.